Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of the Earthship Harmony as it moved through space toward the giant crystal city floating among the stars. Nexus Prime looked beautiful from far away, with its tall spires that caught light from 3 different suns, but Tejo knew that beauty hid something ugly inside. For 300 years, Earth had been part of the Galactic Council. Humans had worked hard to prove they belonged among the 12 great alien races that ruled the galaxy. They had followed every rule, paid every tax, and sent their best people to serve on council worlds. But it was never enough. The aliens always looked down on humans. They called Earth's people young ones or the violent species behind their backs. In council meetings, human ideas were ignored or laughed at. When humans built something new, the aliens said it was too dangerous. When humans helped solve problems, the aliens said they were being too pushy. Tejo had seen it all during his 20 years in space. He had watched human diplomats bow and scrape to alien officials who treated them like children. He had seen human colonies denied basic rights that other species took for granted. Most painful of all, he had watched brilliant human minds waste away in meaningless jobs because the council would not let them rise too high. Today, everything would change. Chancellor Boram waited for him in the ship's meeting room. She was Earth's top diplomat, a woman who had spent 30 years trying to make the aliens respect humanity. Her face was tired, with lines around her eyes that came from too many sleepless nights fighting for her people. "They want to see us in the main chamber in 1 hour," she said. "All 12 council members will be there, even the Vorthak Emperor himself." The Vorthak were the most powerful race in the council. They looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs with scales that changed color when they were angry. Their empire controlled more than 1,000 worlds, and their word carried more weight than all the other council members combined. Tejo nodded. "What do you think they want?" "Nothing good," Boram replied. "My sources say the Vorthak have been meeting in secret with the other council members for weeks. They've been showing evidence of something, but no one will tell me what." As their ship docked at Nexus Prime, Tejo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The space station was huge, bigger than Earth's moon. Millions of aliens lived and worked here, making the laws that controlled the entire galaxy. But humans were only allowed in certain areas, and they always had to travel with alien guides. The council chamber was a vast room with a dome made of clear crystal. 12 massive chairs were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different alien species. At the center was a small platform where people came to speak to the council. It was built low so that everyone had to look up at the council members, like children looking up at adults. Emperor Kethmor of the Vorthak sat in the largest chair. His scales were dark red today, which meant he was angry about something. Around him sat the other 11 rulers, the insect-like Zephyrians, the floating gas creatures called ethereals, the rock people known as stonebloods, and 8 other species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. "Humans of Earth," Emperor Kethmor's voice boomed through the chamber. "You stand accused of breaking the most sacred laws of the council." Tejo and Boram stood on the small platform. Around them, hundreds of alien observers filled the viewing areas. Not one friendly face could be seen. "What are the charges?" Boram asked, trying to keep her voice steady. A hologram appeared in the air above them. It showed what looked like human ships and human soldiers, but something was wrong. The ships had weapons that Earth had never built. The soldiers were doing things that no human would do. "You have been secretly building weapons of mass destruction," said the ethereal representative, its voice like wind through metal pipes. "Your species has been preparing for war against the council." "This is impossible," Boram said. "Earth has no such weapons. We follow all council laws about military technology." "Lies," hissed the Zephyrian queen. "We have proof that human colonies have been testing forbidden weapons. We have recordings of human officials planning attacks on council worlds." More holograms appeared. They showed human faces saying terrible things about alien species. They showed human scientists working on weapons that could destroy entire planets. But Tejo knew it was all fake. The voices were wrong. The faces looked strange, and the weapons were not anything Earth had ever designed. "Someone is lying to you," Tejo said, stepping forward. "This evidence is false. Humans have never—" "Silence!" Emperor Kethmor roared, his scales turning black with rage. "Do you dare call the council liars?" For 3 hours, the aliens presented their evidence. Every piece of proof showed humans planning war, building illegal weapons, or plotting to destroy the council. Some of it was so well faked that even Tae-ho began to doubt what he knew to be true, but then he understood. This was not about evidence or laws or justice. This was about fear. The aliens were afraid of humans. They were afraid because humans learned fast and adapted quickly. They were afraid because human technology was getting better every year. Most of all, they were afraid because humans had something the Council had never seen before: the ability to make enemies into friends. In just 300 years, humans had solved problems that had puzzled alien scientists for thousands of years. Human diplomats had ended wars that had lasted for centuries. Human traders had brought prosperity to worlds that had been poor for generations. The Council members ruled through fear and tradition, but humans ruled through hope and progress. The vote was quick. All 12 Council members voted the same way. By the power of the Galactic Council, Emperor Kethamor announced, the species known as humans are hereby banished from Council space. You have 30 standard days to remove all human presence from beyond your home system. Any human found outside the Sol system after this deadline will be considered an act of war against the Council. Boram tried to speak, to beg for mercy or more time, but the aliens were not listening. Guards were already moving toward the platform. As they were escorted back to their ship, Tae-ho made a promise to himself and to his species. The aliens thought they had solved their human problem by sending Earth's people back to their little corner of space. They thought they had caged the dangerous animals. They had no idea what they had just done. On the long journey back to Earth, Tae-ho stood in the ship's communications center and sent the same message to every human world. Every human ship and every human colony. We have been cast out. We have been called unworthy, but we are still human. We are still Earth's children. And we will show them what happens when you try to cage the storm. 5 years had passed since the day Earth was thrown out of the Galactic Council. The blue planet looked the same from space, but everything had changed. Every nation on Earth now worked together under one government called the Terran Federation. Every factory, every mine, every laboratory had one purpose: to build the greatest space force the galaxy had ever seen. Prime Minister Du Young stood in the underground command center buried deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Around him, thousands of screens showed the progress of humanity's greatest project. On Luna, massive shipyards carved into the moon's dark side built vessels larger than any Earth had made before. On Mars, weapons factories worked day and night behind red dust clouds. In the asteroid belt, mining ships gathered materials while construction crews built secret bases. "Show me the numbers again," Du Young said to his aide. "We now have 4,000 ships completed, sir," the young woman replied. "Another 6,000 are under construction. The crews are trained and ready. Our weapons testing shows results that are extraordinary." Du Young nodded. When the Council had banished humanity, they had made their biggest mistake. Humans worked best when they were angry, and they were very angry now. Admiral Tae-ho walked into the command center wearing the new uniform of the Terran Federation Navy. Gone were the bright colors and fancy decorations that the Council had required. The new uniforms were simple, practical, and designed for war. "The fleet is ready for Phase 2, Tae-ho reported. "Commander Hee-jin has established bases in 12 systems beyond Council space. Agent Subin's people have made contact with rebel groups on 47 worlds. Everything is going according to plan." The plan was simple but brilliant. While the Council thought humans were trapped in their home system, secret fleets had been moving through unexplored space routes that only human ships could navigate. Human agents had been making friends with alien species that the Council had crushed under their rule for centuries. Chief Engineer Young Soo arrived carrying a data pad with the latest test results. He was the man responsible for humanity's greatest secret: ships that could change their shape during battle. "The new hull technology is working perfectly," he reported with excitement. "Our ships can reconfigure themselves in less than 30 seconds. A cargo ship can become a battleship. A science vessel can become a stealth fighter. The aliens have never seen anything like it." Dr. Minna entered the room next. She was Earth's leading expert on alien biology, and she had spent 5 years studying every weakness of every Council species. Her research would help human weapons work better against alien bodies and minds. "I've finished the psychological profiles," she said. Each council species has been in power for so long that they can't imagine losing. They think in patterns that haven't changed for thousands of years. They expect enemies to fight the same way their old enemies did. When we attack, they won't know how to respond. But the most important visitor was Agent Subin, Earth's top spy. She had just returned from a dangerous mission deep in council space, where she had learned secrets that would change everything. "The council is weaker than we thought," she reported. "The 12-member species control their empires through fear, but their subject races hate them. On every world I visited, I found people who would fight for freedom if someone gave them the chance." "How many allies can we count on?" Du Young asked. "At least 30 species are ready to rebel," Subin replied. "Maybe more. They've been waiting for someone strong enough to lead them. They think that someone might be us." The most shocking discovery had come from archaeologist Wu Jin. While digging through ancient ruins on dead worlds, he had found proof that the Council had destroyed advanced civilizations before. Species that grew too powerful or too independent were eliminated before they could challenge the Council's rule. "We weren't the first," Wu Jin had reported months earlier. "The Council has been doing this for millions of years. They find a promising young species, let them join the Council, then destroy them when they become a threat. They tried to do it to us, but we escaped." Even worse, the ancient ruins suggested that the Council had once fought a great war against a species very much like humans. A species that believed in freedom, progress, and unity among different peoples. The Council had won that war by using the same tricks they had tried on Earth: false evidence, legal banishment, then military destruction. "They made one mistake this time," Teho had said when he heard the news. "They let us live." Now, in the command center beneath the mountains, the leaders of the Terran Federation made their final plans. For 5 years, every human had worked toward this moment. Children too young to remember the Council had grown up knowing they would be soldiers. Adults had given up comfortable lives to work in factories and shipyards. Scientists had shared discoveries that once would have taken decades to develop. The result was an entire civilization built for war, but not the kind of war the Council expected. Human ships were faster, more flexible, and more intelligent than anything in the galaxy. Human soldiers were trained to fight in any environment against any enemy. Human weapons were designed specifically to defeat each Council species. Most importantly, humans had allies. While the Council races spent their time competing with each other and keeping their subject peoples down, humans had been building friendships across the galaxy. When the war came, the Council would face not just the Terran Federation, but dozens of rebel species fighting for their freedom. "When do we begin?" Du Young asked. Teho looked at the screens showing humanity's hidden fleet. 10,000 ships waited in the darkness between stars. Millions of human soldiers stood ready in bases that the Council didn't even know existed. On worlds throughout Council space, alien rebels prepared to rise up at the signal from Earth. "The Council meets in 3 days to celebrate the 5th anniversary of our banishment," Teho said. "They think it's a day of victory for them. Let's show them how wrong they are." Subin smiled. "My agents are in position throughout their territory. The moment we attack, communication networks will go down and supply lines will be cut. They won't be able to coordinate their defense." Young Su added, "Our new ships can travel through hyperspace routes that Council vessels can't use. We'll hit them from directions they never expected." Minna held up her research files. "I've identified the exact frequencies that will disrupt each species' nervous systems. Our weapons will be far more effective than they can imagine." In the 5 years since their banishment, humanity had transformed from a minor Council member into something entirely new. They had become a species designed for victory, shaped by anger and focused by purpose. The Council had wanted to remove the human threat by sending them home. Instead, they had given Earth's children the time and motivation they needed to become unstoppable. "Signal all fleets," Admiral Teho commanded. "Operation Homecoming begins now." Across human space, thousands of ships powered up their engines and turned toward the stars where their enemies waited. The exiles were coming home, and they were bringing war with them. The Terran fleet emerged from hyperspace like ghosts becoming real, One moment the space around Kepler Station was empty except for the usual Council patrol ships. The next moment, over 300 human vessels filled the void with deadly purpose. Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Indomitable, watching as his fleet took perfect formation around the Council's most important military base. Kepler Station was huge, a metal city floating in space where the Council stored weapons and trained soldiers. Taking it would be the first step in humanity's return to the galaxy. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Commander Hyojin from her position at the weapons console. She had spent 5 years preparing for this moment, training crews and testing new battle tactics that no alien had ever seen. "Enemy forces are moving to intercept," reported Admiral Jong-soo, whose stealth ships had been watching the station for weeks. 12 heavy cruisers, 46 destroyers, and about 200 fighter craft. "They're following standard Council attack patterns." Tejo smiled grimly. Standard patterns were exactly what humans had been hoping for. The Council forces were led by Admiral Kethfor, nephew of the Vorthak Emperor. He commanded from the battleship Crushing Victory, a vessel that had never lost a battle in 300 years of service. Around him, ships from 6 different Council species moved into the formations their ancestors had used for thousands of years. "Unknown vessels," came the transmission from the Council fleet. "You're in violation of Council space. Identify yourselves immediately or face destruction." Admiral Tejo activated his ship's communication system. His words would be heard not just by the enemy fleet, but by monitoring stations throughout Council space. "Council forces, this is Admiral Tejo of the Terran Federation Navy. We are the children of Earth returning to claim what is rightfully ours. You cast us out as barbarians. Today you learn what we have become." The battle began exactly as the Council expected. Their heavy ships moved forward in a wall formation, while fighters swarmed around the flanks. It was a tactic that had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. But humans were not like their previous enemies. Instead of meeting the Council ships head-on, the Terran fleet seemed to melt away like smoke. Ships that had looked like battleships suddenly reconfigured into smaller, faster vessels. What appeared to be cargo haulers revealed hidden weapon systems and became deadly fighters. Admiral Kethfor watched in confusion as human ships flowed around his formations like water around rocks. His weapons fired at targets that weren't where they appeared to be. His fighters found themselves chasing ghosts while real enemies struck from unexpected directions. "How are they doing this?" he demanded from his bridge crew. "Their ships are changing shape, sir," reported his tactical officer. "Our targeting computers can't lock onto them. They're using some kind of technology we've never seen." The first Council ship to fall was the destroyer Righteous Anger. Captain Hyunwoo's assault team had appeared to ram the ship, then at the last second reconfigured into a boarding pod that attached to the destroyer's hull. Within minutes, human Marines in powered armor were fighting through the corridors while the ship's systems were taken over by human computer specialists. This was something that had never happened in Council history. Their ships were designed to fight at long range with energy weapons and guided missiles. No one had ever boarded a Council vessel and captured it intact. "Surrender, and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war," Captain Hyunwoo announced over the destroyer's communication system. "Continue fighting, and we will show you why humans are feared throughout the galaxy." The alien crew, trained to die rather than surrender, found themselves facing an enemy that didn't want to kill them. Human Marines used weapons that stunned rather than destroyed. They herded enemy soldiers into holding areas instead of shooting them down. For species that had been taught that defeat meant death, this was more shocking than any weapon. 3 more Council ships were captured in the same way. Admiral Kethvor's perfect formation began to fall apart as his captains panicked. Some ships tried to retreat, only to find human vessels appearing behind them from hyperspace routes that should have been impossible to navigate. Others attempted to ram the human ships, but found themselves facing enemies that could dodge and reconfigure faster than their weapons could track. The tide of battle turned when Admiral Yoon Young's fighter wings struck from above and below simultaneously. Her pilots flew ships that could change from fighters to bombers to rescue craft within seconds. They moved in patterns that made no sense to Council tactical computers, striking targets and disappearing before return fire could find them. But the most devastating moment came when Subin's agents activated their hidden programs. Throughout the Council fleet, computer systems began to malfunction. Navigation failed, weapons powered down, Communication systems broadcast surrender orders in the voices of each ship's captain. What is happening? Admiral Kethivor screamed as his own ship's systems began to fail. The humans infiltrated our networks weeks ago, sir, his communication officer reported in horror. They've been inside our computers all along, just waiting for the right moment. The battle that should have lasted hours was over in 90 minutes. Of the Council's 68 ships, 37 had been captured intact, 22 were disabled and drifting, and only 9 had managed to escape back to Council space. The humans had lost no ships and only 12 people injured. As the last enemy vessel fled, Admiral Tejo opened a channel that would broadcast to every world in Council space. His message was simple but clear. People of the galaxy, he said, standing tall on his bridge with the captured Kepler station visible behind him. The age of Council rule is ending. We offer freedom to those who have been oppressed, partnership to those who seek peace, and destruction to those who choose war. The children of Earth have returned. The victory at Kepler Station sent shockwaves throughout the Council. For the first time in their long history, their most advanced military base had fallen to an enemy. More frightening, it had fallen to the primitive humans they had dismissed only 5 years before. But Tejo knew that one victory was not enough. The Council had thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. They would learn from this defeat and adapt their tactics. The next battle would be harder. That's why he had planned to make sure there would be many next battles, all happening at the same time. As news of Kepler's fall spread through Council space, human agents on dozens of worlds began their own operations. Subin's network of rebels, built over 5 years of secret work, activated simultaneously. Alien species that had been crushed under Council rule for centuries suddenly found themselves with human weapons and tactical support. The Kalari, a bird-like species enslaved for their flying skills, seized their homeworld's orbital defenses. The Morlac, stone-skinned miners forced to work in Council factories, captured 3 major industrial centers. The Zinti, aquatic beings kept in labor camps, freed their people and began attacking Council shipping lanes. Within days of the Kepler victory, 47 worlds were in open rebellion. The Council faced not just a human invasion, but a galaxy-wide uprising of species they had kept down for millennia. Standing on the bridge of his captured station, Admiral Tejo looked out at the stars and smiled. The Council had banished humanity to teach them a lesson about knowing their place. Now it was time for the Council to learn about consequences. 3 years had passed since the first human ships returned to Council space. The galaxy was completely different now. Emperor Tejo walked through the halls of what used to be the Council chambers on Nexus Prime. The crystal spires still reached toward the stars, but human flags now flew from their peaks. The great meeting room where Earth's diplomats had once been humiliated was now the throne room of the Terran Empire. The transformation had been faster than anyone expected. After the victory at Kepler Station, the Council forces had crumbled like a house built on sand. Their rigid tactics and old-fashioned weapons were no match for human adaptability and speed. More importantly, their subject peoples had risen up everywhere at once, turning a war between humans and the Council into a galaxy-wide revolution. Fleet Admiral Hyojin stood beside the Emperor's throne, reporting on the latest military operations. She wore the new uniform of the Imperial Navy, which included symbols from dozens of different species. The human fleet now contained ships and crews from every corner of the galaxy. "The siege of Vorthak Prime is complete, Your Majesty," she said. "Emperor Kethmor surrendered this morning. The last major Council stronghold has fallen." Tejo nodded. The Vorthak had been the most powerful Council species, but even they couldn't fight the combined forces of humanity and their new alien allies. Their surrender meant the old Council was truly dead. "What about the hegemony remnant?" Tejo asked. "Marshal Yun Young's forces are closing in on their last bases," Hyojin replied. "The remnant forces are trapped in the outer dark region. They have maybe 50 ships left, mostly damaged. Marshal Yun Young expects to finish them within the month." Governor General Zhang Su approached the throne carrying reports from across the empire. His job was managing the hundreds of worlds that now flew human flags. Unlike the old Council system, the Terran Empire promoted people based on ability rather than species or birth. "The integration programs are working better than expected," he reported. Former Council client species are adapting quickly to Imperial administration. Productivity is up 300% on most worlds. The new trade routes are bringing wealth to systems that were poor under Council rule. This was the secret of human success, where the Council had ruled through fear and kept different species apart. Humans brought different peoples together and let them help each other. A Kalari pilot might work with a human engineer and a Morlac builder to create something none of them could have made alone. Chief Scientist Minna entered the throne room with her latest research reports. The Empire's science centers were spread across hundreds of worlds, with human and alien scientists working together on projects the Council had never allowed. The new hyperspace navigation system is ready for testing, she announced. By combining human engineering with ethereal energy manipulation and Kalari spatial awareness, we've created drives that are twice as fast as anything the Council ever built. What about the deep space exploration project? Tejo asked. We've detected signs of intelligent life in the next galaxy over, Minna replied excitedly. The signals are very different from anything we know. It might be another species like humans, or something completely new. Admiral Hyunwoo approached the throne next. He commanded the deep strike fleets that were exploring unknown regions of space beyond where the Council had ever traveled. His ships were finding new worlds, new species, and new opportunities for the Empire. We've made contact with 3 new civilizations in the far reaches, he reported. 2 of them want to join the Empire immediately. The third is complicated. How complicated? Tejo asked. They're old, Your Majesty. Older than the Council, older than any species we know. They call themselves the Watchers, and they've been observing our galaxy for millions of years. They're curious about humans because we're the first species they've seen that builds up instead of tearing down. This news made everyone in the throne room quiet. The idea that ancient beings had been watching the galaxy was both exciting and scary, but it also proved something that humans had suspected. They were different from other species in important ways. Advisor Du Young, now the Empire's chief administrator, stepped forward with the daily reports from across Imperial space. Managing an empire of 3,000 star systems was the largest organizational challenge in galactic history, but human systems made it work. The quarterly reports show continued growth in all sectors, he said. Agricultural output is up, manufacturing is expanding, and research development is accelerating. Most importantly, conflicts between member species have dropped to almost zero. What about resistance movements? Tejo asked. There are some holdouts in the old Council core worlds, Du Young admitted. Maybe 10,000 people spread across 20 systems. They still believe the Council will return somehow, but they're not causing serious problems. The transformation of galactic civilization under human leadership was remarkable. Species that had hated each other for thousands of years were now working together. Technologies that the Council had banned were being developed openly. Ideas that were once forbidden were being discussed in schools and universities across the Empire. But Tejo knew that building an empire was easier than keeping one. History was full of conquerors who won great victories but lost everything, because they didn't know when to stop fighting. Admiral Hyunwoo, he said, I want you to halt the expansion into the far reaches. We need to consolidate what we have before we reach too far. Hyunwoo looked disappointed. Your Majesty, there are dozens of systems out there that could join the Empire. Why stop now when we're winning? Because empires that don't know their limits end up destroying themselves, Tejo replied. Alexander conquered most of his known world, then died young because he pushed too hard. Rome grew so large it couldn't control its borders and fell apart. We won't make the same mistakes. Minister Boram, who had been Earth's diplomat during the dark days before the banishment, approached the throne. She was now the Empire's foreign minister, responsible for relations with the few independent species that remained outside Imperial control. The Free Worlds Alliance wants to sign a non-aggression treaty, she reported. They're offering to recognize Imperial claims in exchange for guaranteed independence for their member systems. Accept their offer, Tejo said immediately. We don't need to conquer everyone to be successful. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to fight. As the day's reports continued, Tejo thought about how far humanity had come. 5 years ago, they had been exiles thrown out of the galaxy by species that saw them as inferior. Now, those same species served in the human military, worked in human factories, and sent their children to human schools. The old council had ruled through fear and division. They kept species separated and competing against each other. They restricted technology and limited opportunities so that no one could challenge their power. The Terran Empire worked the opposite way. Different species were encouraged to cooperate and share ideas. New technologies were developed as quickly as possible and shared throughout the Empire. Everyone had opportunities to rise as high as their abilities would take them. The result was a civilization unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Art, science, philosophy, and technology were advancing faster than they had in thousands of years. Species that had been enemies were becoming friends. Worlds that had been poor were becoming wealthy. But most importantly, the Empire was stable in a way the Council had never been. People supported imperial rule not because they were forced to, but because it made their lives better. Standing in the throne room that had once been used to humiliate humanity, Emperor Tejo looked out at the stars and smiled. The aliens who had banished Earth's children had been right to fear them. They just hadn't understood what they should be afraid of. They thought humans were dangerous because they were violent. The truth was much more terrifying. Humans were dangerous because they were builders. And now they were building the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. 25 years had passed since Earth was banished from the Galactic Council. Emperor Tejo, now an old man with gray hair and lined face, stood in the Great Hall of Species on Terra Victrix, the former Nexus Prime. Before him sat representatives from over 400 worlds, speaking in dozens of languages and representing every known form of intelligent life. Today would change everything again. Citizens of the galaxy, Tejo began, his voice still strong despite his age. 25 years ago, a group of frightened aliens tried to destroy humanity by casting us out of their exclusive club. They succeeded only in creating something far greater than they ever imagined. The assembled delegates listened in perfect silence. Among them sat former enemies who were now trusted allies, former slaves who were now free leaders, and former outcasts who had found their place in the new order. Today, I announce the end of the Terran Empire, Tejo continued. In its place we established the Terran Commonwealth, a federation where humanity leads not by force but by example. The hall erupted in cheers and celebration. This moment had been planned for 5 years, ever since it became clear that the Empire had grown too large and diverse to be ruled by one species, even humans. Speaker Boram, now an elderly woman but still sharp-minded, stepped forward to explain the new government structure. She had spent decades building relationships with alien species, first as Earth's desperate diplomat, then as the Empire's foreign minister, and now as the leader of the galaxy's first truly representative government. The Commonwealth Assembly will have representatives from every member world, she announced. Decisions will be made by majority vote, with protections for minority species. No single group will ever again have the power to cast out others simply because they fear them. Defense Minister Hyejin, once a young admiral fighting humanity's first battles, now commanded the most powerful military force in galactic history. But unlike the old Council forces, the Commonwealth Defense Force was integrated at every level. Our military will continue to protect all Commonwealth worlds, she reported. But we fight now not for conquest but for defense of freedom. Human tactical doctrine has been adapted by 47 different species. We are stronger because we are diverse. The greatest changes were shown in the reports from Chief Administrator Jong-Soo. Under the Empire, former Council worlds had been rebuilt and revitalized. Under the Commonwealth, they would have equal voice in their own governance. Trade between member worlds has increased by over 2,000% since the fall of the Council, he reported. Scientific advancement has accelerated beyond all previous records. Most importantly, armed conflicts between member species have been reduced to zero. We have achieved what the Council claimed to want, peace throughout the galaxy. But the most remarkable discovery had come from Dr. Mina's research into galactic history. Her xenological studies, aided by archaeological work from hundreds of worlds, had revealed the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. Genetic analysis confirms what we suspected, she announced to the assembled delegates. The ancient precursor civilization that the Council destroyed millions of years ago shared common ancestors with humanity. We are not invaders or conquerors. We are the galaxy's children, finally come home. This revelation explained so much. It explained why humans could adapt to any environment, why they could work with any species, why they had the unique ability to unite enemies and build lasting alliances. They were the inheritors of the galaxy's first great civilization, the children of beings who had once brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. The Council had sensed this truth without understanding it. Their fear of humanity hadn't been based on human aggression or technology. It had been the deep instinctive fear that they were seeing the return of their ancient masters. Emperor Teho looked around the great hall at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. There were the proud Vorthak, no longer the galaxy's overlords but respected partners in building the future. There were the insectoid Zephyrians, their hive minds now contributing to collective decision-making instead of enforcing rigid control. There were dozens of species that had been enslaved or suppressed by the Council, now free to contribute their unique talents to galactic civilization. But most importantly, there were species that had never been part of the old order at all. The Watchers, ancient beings from beyond the galaxy's edge, had finally made open contact and offered their knowledge to the Commonwealth. New civilizations discovered in unexplored regions were joining as equals rather than conquered subjects. The Commonwealth flag bears Earth's symbol surrounded by the stars of all member worlds, Teho said, pointing to the banner that hung above the assembly. But in my private study I keep the original flag of the Terran Federation, with its simple motto that guided us through our darkest hours. From the ashes of rejection, we forged the hammer of destiny. As the ceremony continued, delegates from across the galaxy took turns speaking about what the Commonwealth meant to their peoples. The Kalari representative spoke of freedom to fly among the stars. The Morlack delegate talked about the dignity of honest work fairly rewarded. The ethereal ambassador described the joy of sharing knowledge without restriction. One by one, they told the same story. The Commonwealth had given them what the Council never could: hope for the future, respect for their contributions, and the chance to build something greater than any single species could create alone. Agent Subin, now Director of Commonwealth Intelligence, presented her final report on the old Council resistance movements. After 25 years, even the most stubborn holdouts had finally accepted that the old order was never coming back. The last Council loyalist group surrendered yesterday, she reported. They want to join the Commonwealth as full members. The age of resistance is over. The age of cooperation has begun, but perhaps the most significant moment came when archaeologist Wu Jin announced the discovery that would reshape understanding of galactic history. We have found the homeworld of the precursor civilization, he said, showing images of a beautiful planet covered with ruins that looked remarkably similar to human architecture. It's in a system the Council declared forbidden millions of years ago. They knew the truth all along. The planet would become a shrine to the galaxy's shared heritage, tended by archaeologists and historians from every Commonwealth species. It was proof that the galaxy's greatest civilization had been built on the same principles the Commonwealth followed: unity in diversity, strength through cooperation, and progress through freedom. As the day's ceremonies drew to a close, Teho reflected on humanity's incredible journey. From a small, dismissed species begging for acceptance, they had become the foundation of the galaxy's greatest civilization, but they had done it not by conquering or destroying their enemies, but by showing them a better way to live. The Council had cast out humanity because they feared what Earth's children might become. Standing in the Great Hall surrounded by beings from across the galaxy, all working together toward a common future, Teho realized that the Council's worst fears had come true. Humans had become exactly what the Council was afraid of: a species that could unite the galaxy under principles of justice, equality, and mutual respect. But instead of bringing tyranny, humanity had brought freedom. Instead of conquest, they had brought cooperation. Instead of the destruction the Council had expected, Earth's children had built the greatest civilization in galactic history. The Commonwealth flag flew over 4,000 worlds now, and new species applied to join every month. Trade routes carried goods and ideas to the farthest corners of explored space. Universities on hundreds of worlds taught the same curriculum, ensuring that knowledge spread to every corner of galactic civilization. Most importantly, the galaxy was at peace. Not the fearful and forced peace of the Council era, but the genuine peace that comes when different peoples choose to work together toward common goals. Looking out at the stars visible through the Great Hall's crystal dome, Emperor Tejo smiled. Somewhere out there, new civilizations were being born. New species were taking their first steps into space. New challenges were waiting to test the Commonwealth's strength. The galaxy belonged to Earth's children now, not through conquest but through invitation, and they had only just begun to reach for the stars beyond.